I'll give a brief backstory on me currently, and then kind of walk through the journey of giving some tips about graduating debt free. So I am a CPA right now with the Detroit Pistons. That is my full-time role as their revenue accountant. Prior to that, I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC for short, and their private company services, kind of dealing with taxes and different individuals and corporations and things like that. And outside of, my full-time roles as a CPA, I also run a business called Jesus and Justice Apparel. And then the book, Graduate to Freedom, which I'm super excited for you all to get a copy of today. And so what sparked that book coming about was just my really untraditional route to graduating debt free. And so me and my co-author, Nia Hill, we met really as freshmen in college, completely different campuses though. I was at Central Michigan University, fire up chips, and she was at Howard University all the way, and it's a historically Black college or university, way out of state, but she was originally from Chicago and me, Detroit. And we were both accounting majors, and it kind of just felt like we were on similar paths. We both had interned as freshmen with PwC, and our paths crossed there. And we kind of followed one another's journeys throughout the years. And by senior year, we realized, oh, we're both graduating debt free. We had kind of been in similar circles when it came to getting the same scholarships and things like that. And so I reached out, like, I really think we should make a resource for students. I'm always getting questions about, how do I get scholarships and how do I graduate without debt, and to have a resource for every student to be able to reference what it was just great, and truthfully a time saver in the end. So I can refer people to the book now when it comes to all my best tips and tricks. But when it came to that, my journey originally when I went to CMU was I had maybe, let's say, 75% of my expenses covered by scholarships and things like that. But 25% I felt like I was still going to have to figure out. And so I went in knowing, hey, I'm a first generation college student. My parents didn't really know how to advise me on that journey. And so it was a lot of figuring it out and relying on my peers who might have had scholarships before me at CMU, and that was super beneficial. One of my good friends, Kayla Harvard Bates, and I even reference her in the book because it shows the value of those friendships, even from those who are just a few years older than me. When she was able to share about her journey at CMU and one of the scholarships she got, which was for multicultural advancement. And for me, that was a huge chunk of my expenses because I believe it was around like 42,000 over the 4 years. And so being able to get that scholarship was definitely life-changing. And I felt like solidified where I was supposed to go for school, along with some merit-based scholarships, which we talk about in the book as well, based off of GPA and your standardized test scores like the ACT and SAT and things like that. But going in, I still didn't have everything completely covered. So freshman year, I think I had some scholarships through my high school that helped cover the difference, a church scholarship that I was able to get, so that helped cover the difference that freshman year. But by the time my second semester started, I realized, oh, I don't have enough funds. And I had to go to the financial aid office and figure out my first student loan. And that was like devastating at the time because I'm like, I really want to graduate debt free. I didn't want to go that route. And so I took out loans that freshman year and my freshman year, second semester, and then my sophomore year as well. But something shifted in me going into my junior year, and I knew I didn't want to take out any more debt. And one thing that we talk about in the book is just mindset being the biggest piece. And so I knew that I wasn't going to make any more excuses. I was going to do whatever I could to make sure I covered the rest of my college expenses. And it really did pay off. It felt like things shifted into gear where I found on-campus housing or a job actually that covered my on-campus housing and like a meal plan and things like that. So my role was as a peer advisor for our multicultural scholars, which was a specific scholarship cohort that I had been a recipient of, and now other students were about to participate in as well. And so to be able to come back full circle and be a mentor to them in the dorms, and that come again with my room being covered, which was a huge amount of the college expenses and a paycheck as well. That was life-changing, at the time as well, to have that. Other on-campus jobs that are pretty common are resident assistants, so RAs for short. those come with free room and board as well. So we advise people to look into that, or work study options. Maybe you are working in an office on campus, or you're working in the cafeteria, and even things like that, understanding those come with different perks as well. If you're working in the cafeteria on campus, okay, that covers meals, things like that. So we definitely talk about different tips and tricks of how to work your way through college. And not, for me, I wasn't fully reliant on scholarships. Work was a part of that. Even summer internships that I had all throughout my college experience definitely helped me to cover the cost and not have to rely on parents or things like that. And so it came to the point my junior year, I realized that I had my job lined up. So all my expenses were covered now outside of classes, but I also was nominated for a $10,000 scholarship through the PCAOB, which is the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. Thank you that I actually remembered that acronym off the top of my head, because I did not practice that. And PCAOB, the power of that scholarship, it really leveraged the power of relationships, because it wasn't one that I could apply for. I had to be nominated for it. And I had an accounting professor who I actually hadn't had at the time. I guess he was asking around in our accounting department, like, hey, do you know any students who would be a good fit for this award? And my name came up from, I guess, somebody in the office, maybe a previous professor I had or what have you. And so set up some time to talk with this new professor. And I walked in like, hey, I'm definitely interested. And they said, oh, great. Like, all I needed was your okay. I'll send your resume, because, I had applied for some other scholarships in the past. So they already had my resume and grades or whatever. And so that was just a testament of something I didn't even have to work for, but it was because I had already put in work with building relationships and being a good student, and being active in my learning experience, that really spoke to them to know that, hey, I'm really serious about becoming an accountant or CPA specifically. And that $10,000 scholarship was, again, life-changing, because now it really shifted my thought process of, okay, maybe I don't have to graduate with debt like I thought. Freshman year, sophomore year, I had taken out those loans. And so by the time junior year had come, I realized, okay, let me start thinking about revisiting my goal and my why of wanting to be debt free. And so I had my job, the scholarship came in. So now I had all these excess funds, and I realized I wanted to put that money towards paying off my loans instead. I had different advice. Some people said to hold on to, the funds, you'll need it for senior year. But I really had this piece about the fact that because I had made a method of how to apply for scholarships, that I was going to be able to find some more funds. And so I didn't want the loans that I had to keep accumulating interest. Another thing we talk about in the book are the difference between subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, and really knowing which ones you have, because not everybody's loans don't accrue interest until you graduate. And so I had the ones that did. And so the amount that I initially thought I took out, which was about like 9K, was now like 10K by the time I looked at them again. And so just being aware of that as a student, and being really in charge of your finances, knowing how much debt you have outstanding, is super important. And so I was super happy that I looked into it when I did, because that was the further push I needed to say, okay, let me pay off these loans, because I don't want this to be like 15K in a couple years from now or something like that too. And so from there, really just kept applying for scholarships. I got a great scholarship through the MICPA as well, which was for 5,000, and that was huge as a CPA, or knowing that I wanted to pursue my CPA, because you needed 150 credit hours, and a lot of universities for undergrad go up to like 120, 130 or so. And so I knew that there would be a gap in how I finished getting my 150. And so the MICPA was a huge help in being able to continue to fund my education as I pursued my CPA and things like that as well. So in a nutshell, graduated and realized that, I had a few tips and tricks and tools and stuff. And I really wanted other people to be able to grasp that, and not just what my successes were, but also what my mistakes were in this. And I always say, I want you to bypass my mistakes and build on my successes. And so in regards to the mistakes, just as a high schooler, not being as prepared as I thought I was, because I felt like, oh, because I have great grades, I was valedictorian in high school. I'm kind of set in that regard, but I didn't know about the weight of standardized test scores and just when you should start applying for things, how to get things on your radar and the time management of everything. And so mistakes in that regard, and even college, that freshman, sophomore time, we talk about in the book, because I want people to be able to hit the ground running when they start thinking about college and thinking about the AP classes you could be taking in high school or dual enrollment and things like that. So we break it down. There's so many just little nuggets in here that I pray are super beneficial to everyone. But I think that's my journey in a nutshell.
I hear quite often that there's a lot of money left untouched out on the
Oh, yeah.
table.
Hmm.
How would you, where would you suggest they start looking for these scholarships, or,
Hmm.
what resources are available to them?
Yes. So first, even the first thing you said of there's a lot of money left on the table, I always encourage students to go for any scholarship, even if you don't hit all the requirements of it. Don't let that deter you, because I've heard from scholarship committees directly of, well, we have all these funds, companies have sponsored us, we don't have anybody to give them to. And so applying and being off by one requirement, I said go for it. The worst you can hear is no. And even in my case, I didn't receive every single scholarship I applied to or every single job I applied to, but I got enough yeses and enough opportunities where I still ended my journey with being debt free. So that's one. Do not count yourself out before you even give it a try. Go for all the scholarships that you see out there. And then resources. One I mentioned, high school, like our high school had specific scholarships that I could apply to as a senior. Different community organizations. For me, my church also had a scholarship that I could apply to my senior year of high school. Professional organizations like the MICPA, like NABA, which is National Association of Black Accountants. And even in that regard, they had local scholarships. So like in my city of Detroit, but they also had regional scholarships. So I was a part of the central region, so I could apply for them, and then national scholarships, which you could also apply for. And that was all off of one student membership. And so I say go for all levels when I think about those kind of organizations, along with, let's see, some other professional organizations. I think those are the huge, like the main ones. Talking to your peers. I spoke on like one of my friends who was about 4 years older than me and had gone through the process. I was asking what scholarships she had applied to when she went to Central and which ones were on the radar. And that was huge because a lot of people didn't know. I got to Central's campus and people would hear that I was a MAC scholar, which was short for Multicultural Advancement Cofer Scholar. And they were like, I didn't know about that. I wish I had known when I applied. I assumed kind of everybody knew, but that wasn't the case. And so being able to talk to your peers, or if you have older cousins, or just whatever it might be, reaching out to people in your network, talking to your school counselors. I definitely talked to my school counselor. I was a part of actually a school to work program my senior year, where we were at school up until like our last hour of the day. And then for me, I got placed at a law firm, which was super cool. And I got some experience in the corporate environment very early on. But my school to work coordinator for that just really resonated with my story. And she was so helpful in me wanting to go to college and wanting to be in as little debt as possible, really no debt. And so she would send me different scholarships that were super helpful. And again, I didn't get every single one I applied for. There were smaller ones that might have been a few hundred. There were some that were for a few thousand. No scholarship was too small to me. And so every one that they sent, I would apply for, and it paid off in the end. But I would say starting in those in those categories, and even moving to online resources like Google or Chegg, or what's another good resource? FastWeb, all these different unique search engines specifically for scholarships. And, I would set up free accounts and just kind of put in the criteria that was the best fit for me, of maybe what school I was going to or what major I was interested in. and it would really be helpful to kind of narrow down scholarships for you. Like when I heard about there was like a left-handed scholarship, I was like, I wish I was left-handed, like I'm right-handed. So I was kind of disqualified from that one, but just little things that you might not think about that these search engines are super helpful in. And so we even break that down in the book too. So that's just kind of super surface level, but so many different resources online and in person to get those scholarships.
That's great. And, I recently just heard of some new scholarships. Like there's the Lansing Scholarship, the Grand Rapids, the
Mhm.
Flint. And I thought, wow. And so many different ways that they will fund like the first 2 years of your
Yes,
college experience. And I thought,
yes.
wow, that's great. Yeah.
Yes, so many. Even Detroit area students, like there's like 4 years free at certain universities if you graduated from certain high schools. I'm like, I wish I had known about that or been a part of that, you know? So yeah, definitely agree with that one, Denise.
For those that are in tax, there's the Michigan Women's Tax Association,
Hmm.
and they give a couple $1,000 scholarships out each year. So
Hmm.
I thought that was, and there have been years where it's been on the table because they just don't have the applicants. So,
Yes,
and I,
yes,
I do love the way that you said, just go for it.
yes.
What do you think was one of the biggest obstacles that you ran into during the whole process?
Ooh, that's a great question. Biggest obstacle, I would probably say time management, just because time management and organization of it all, because there's so many different scholarships, competing deadlines. And for me, being full time working, I really had to learn to treat scholarships like another job. Like it wasn't something that I could brush off and say, oh, I'll just do it later. I'll just, get to it when I have a free moment, because it'll feel like I never have a free moment. Like there's always something that needs to be done. And so again, shifting my mindset in the sense of I really have to make time for this because I don't want to be in any more debt. And so whether that meant a little less sleep that night because I needed to start on an essay instead, or, kind of go over the requirements and plan out, when I would have time to do it. And I would say it got easier the more I got used to the scholarship process. I knew what essays that I had previously written that were, great, that I could eventually start tweaking just a little bit for newer scholarships that would come in. And so once you really get into a rhythm of things, you really get good at maybe, okay, I know that this is something that I should highlight in this essay, or this is a requirement that they are adamant about. And so let me make sure I touch on that, or whatever it might be. So just making time for it, I think, was the biggest thing. And I learned that lesson even with like an on-campus job my freshman year. Going into sophomore year, I just kind of put all my eggs in one basket. Like I wasn't making time for scholarship writing because I was like, oh, I got this job in the bag. Like it'll be great. I'll be a peer advisor, which is eventually what I was my junior year. And I applied for it my freshman year and didn't get it. They said I was too young, even though I was going through the interview process. And full circle moment, they came back around and asked me to be a peer advisor later down the line. But it was a lesson for me of not putting my eggs in one basket and actually making time for those scholarships then, because I that was a mistake I made in sophomore year. I really felt the brunt of that. So I think the hardest part, yeah, was that time management in the beginning. And although like classes were important and making sure I was turning in my assignments, equally important were the scholarships so I could make sure I was still paying for those classes in the future. So yeah, and I think I see some questions too, but hopefully that answers that question of, yeah, time management, and reminding myself it wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it, and just to keep pushing and get some sleep later. But it all paid off.
The forward, the first introduction to the book, and I read the first paragraph. And I thought, this is really, I think it was such an impactful statement. As the old saying goes, representation matters. If all you know is one path, then that is the path you will consistently take. But if you can see examples of an alternative path, a way of doing things differently, and the steps by which you make it happen, you now have an action plan that you can implement. And as you were telling your story, in the fact that it's not just apply here and be done with it, but the
Mhm.
fact that you have to throw it out there. It's like seeding the grass, just keep
Yes.
throwing it out there. I've heard that writing that essay is challenging. So you're saying is that you had an essay and it just kept getting better because you took the skeleton, the
Mhm.
template, so to speak, and just
Mhm.
That's a great tidbit of information. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to start from scratch every single time. That first, the first few scholarships you apply to, absolutely, you're new to the process, so you'll have to find your footing in that. But once you have those award-winning essays, those scholarship-winning essays, again, you use it to your advantage, and you just keep tweaking them and adding to them as the years go on. And so, I love that you even read that part of our forward, the representation part, because a lot of I didn't see it. Like I didn't see debt-free people from my area, and neither did my co-author being from Chicago. And so it was important to us to change the narrative because even as first generation college students, I remember my mom, and she meant well. She was just like, you take out those loans as soon as you graduate, I'll help you, pay them off. And I'm like, but I don't want loans. Like I don't want to normalize that being my thing. And so luckily I graduated with no debt. So that wasn't even a conversation we had to have, but she was already prepared for what she had heard, which was, oh, the way college is super expensive. The only way they'll get through it is with student loans. And so that was the message she was giving me, even though she hadn't been through that process. And so I was just grateful for the different guidance and mentors that I had, or just examples that I was able to see, even if their journey wasn't completely debt free, but I was able to build on even the successes that they had of the scholarships that they applied to and things like that. And now, me and my co-author get to be that representation for somebody that it's possible. And we're not the only two. I have more than a handful of friends who have graduated debt free as well. I can name them off the top of my head, and their journeys are equally amazing and equally different as well. So nobody had the same journey. I had friends who were international students, one from Nigeria, and her journey was uh, just even more. It had its challenges being international, and yet she was still able to graduate debt free from undergrad and from her grad program as well. And so, just super amazing. And she was able to go out of state for even her grad program. And so, knowing that everybody's journey isn't the same, and sometimes your journey might be prolonged because maybe you'll be working in the in between time and you have to pause or whatever. But knowing that you can still end the same way of graduating debt free or starting at a community college or something like that where credits might be cheaper. Like I advise all the things, whatever it takes for you to end the journey how you want it to be, and not comparing your journey to the other person. Because if you say, oh, well, they're out in some people 3.5 years, and I'm like, well, that's crazy. But they kind of powered through, but not knowing, hey, maybe they took AP classes in high school and that took a big chunk away, or whatever it might be. Just knowing that you run your own race, and you'll finish it in perfect timing right where you need to be. And I felt like I had a lot of joy in knowing that I was running my race, running it well, and so was the next person. I could cheer for them, and that not take away from what I was doing either, and not sidetracking me and what was going on. So
Yeah, the MICPA scholarship is actually by the Michigan Accountancy Foundation, and it's one of the rare scholarships that an individual can get for that graduate. Um, Usually they end right around undergrad, right? It's difficult to get scholarships after that.
mhm.
So when you were saying too is about the 3-in-1 with Delta College, that would fall under that because you're meeting the requirement for the 150. It is for the individual that's looking for um, the CPA designation. That's one of the criteria for it.
I would say look into your university scholarships. So every spring at CMU, we would have scholarships for like all the departments open up specifically for accounting. Maybe if you have any minors, which is something that I didn't know until my final year, that I could start, like I could apply for scholarships related to my minor, which was information systems. I thought I had to be a major in it. So I kind of I never looked into them actually, like all throughout university until my senior year. And then somebody told me like, oh no, you're still eligible for those. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That opened up even more scholarships for me to apply for. And so look into those if you are not only an accounting major, maybe you're a finance major as well, or information systems, or marketing, or broadcast and media. I mean, some people pair accounting majors with anything. And so just looking into the different department scholarships available at your university is a great start. Talk to your professors. Again, lean on those resources of maybe they know what's available, your accounting chairs. any advisors, college advisors that you might have within your college of business. I would say lean on all those resources to look for scholarships, along with the online websites and things like that as well, which we dive into in the book, and really how to tailor the search engine for you and being as specific as you can to get some scholarships that are the best fit for you. So I think that's a way to start. Uh, Again, the organizations, yes, Michigan Women's Tax Association, I definitely got a scholarship from them as well. So all of them.
Sure, you got a few from the AICPA too.
Yes, how could I forget all the accounting scholarships? AICPA was amazing. I think they were another $10,000 scholarship, if not maybe 5K or 10K, but super beneficial. And again, I was able to get that multiple years. And even a perk with some of these scholarships are that, other benefits come with it. So sometimes they fly you out to a conference on top of getting scholarship funds for school. And so I remember with the AICPA, their accounting scholars leadership workshop, the year I went, it was in Denver, Colorado. And that was amazing because I'm like, when will I ever get to go to Denver? So that was awesome to have that opportunity on top of the scholarships that I was able to get for my school expenses. I'm trying to think. NABA, their scholarship I got also came with going to Las Vegas for being a part of their program. Um, Goodness, PW. Oh, the firms that you might intern with. So I was with PwC all throughout college, and a lot of the firms have specific scholarships, maybe sponsored by a partner or something like that, who might be an alumni from the university, that are specifically for interns who they plan to start with the firm full time. And so even after interning with them, starting my freshman year, I was able to keep applying for the PwC scholarships. And I know EY has them, Plant Moran, like all of them. So I would look
Mhm.
into those again through your university, and go that way too. KPMG also had some for, their full-time people. So I will look into that.
A
So
lot
many
of different.
resources.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
said Google, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Google is your best friend, okay,
Uh,
in that scholarship process.
but I didn't realize that there were so many resources at the college level,
Hmm.
that I think we overlook.
Hmm.
It's like, because I know that when we send it out to those basic, those contacts there, but
Hmm.
I don't know how well they're communicated down unless students really go and search them. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's where I feel like taking initiative comes into play, because although it might be in your student email, sometimes you might miss it. And so just going out there and searching your school website, seeing what's available, not just within your department, but even outside of it. I know our DEI, or our diversity, equity, and inclusion office, like they had specific scholarships as well that were open to any major. And so not limiting yourself just to your college of business, but seeing what's out there. And I feel like I hope my story encourages people, because these were things I didn't know as a high schooler. And so I was very much so in the thick of college, figuring this stuff out. And still, it wasn't too late for me to graduate debt free. Like, it's not too late until it's too late. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until you graduate, until it's, all behind you and you have that degree. But I would say, as long as you're still in it, you're still an active student, go for as many resources as you can and get that access to the excess funds that are all over your university, your city, whatever it might be. So one of my favorite quotes that I kind of held on to throughout my time in college was, "It won't be easy, but it will be worth it." And I wouldn't say that, a little bit lacking sleep was easy, or just trying to balance it all when it came to classes and scholarships and trying to have a social life and all those things. It wasn't easy, but coming out of it, it was definitely worth it. And I would just say to, in the midst of those hard times or hard seasons, or it just kind of feels overwhelming at times, to remember your why and really hold on to that. And so in order to remember it, you first have to find it. And so I would say really take some time, even after this session, to start thinking about, okay, why do I want to graduate debt free? What benefits does it unlock for me? Whether that be um, just being able to set up your future self or your future family for success, or being able to mentor other people coming behind you and be that representation for them that it's possible, or just simply wanting to be able to be in control of your money when it comes time to graduate later down the line, and be able to say, tell your money what to do versus your money telling you what to do, which is pay these student loans off. You like, you have no other option but to pay these things, versus, oh, I actually want to invest in my 401k, or I actually want to be able to travel, or you know, save for a home, or whatever it might be. Now I get to do those things. But if I did have, this bulk of debt that I had to pay off instead, it would really be a lot more difficult to try to find find the balance that I need in order to do what it is that I would really want to do in this season versus having to do in regards to, paying off student loans or something like that. So just reiterating, find your why and then hold on to it, write it down somewhere. I had sticky notes all over the place. Even in the back of our book, we have different quotes or scriptures that we were holding on to for motivation. And that was huge because it can be difficult. Sometimes you're the only one on that journey. And so your friends might be normalizing, oh, yeah, I'll just pay off those. Some people, I've had people say, oh, I'm never paying off those loans. And I'm like, what? Like, we don't want to normalize that. So sometimes it's hard if people around you may, joke about being in that situation, but having something bigger than you to hold on to and keep you motivated throughout that, I feel like will keep you going, keep you going. So find your why and just know that it'll be worth it in the end.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge and your wisdom. I was that you learned quite a bit over those years.